Jordan is the private advisor to CEOs, specialising in creating results through strategic innovation. Welcome to this week's segment.
Drive profits and growth. And when you've come up with a great idea, how many times have you been aware of a situation where it hasn't delivered the returns that you've expected from it? And that's a lot of the focus of what the CEO Innovation Blueprint is about, is how can we change the way the CEO, as the innovation leader, changes the way their approach to innovation, and also about how we can help the innovation leader change the approach of the board, of the executive team, and our staff to actually drive success. And it's actually quite surprising that despite the amount of investment in management, time and money in driving innovation, with a lot of highly skilled people, there's a lot of frustration in not getting that return. And often it's just things that people don't actually realize, that they're making simple mistakes in how they're approaching it that's causing that result. The best example I would have on that is when I was working late one night trying to provide a report to the board on how successful an innovation plan had been going. It suddenly dawned on me that we've been spending a lot of time focusing on the science of innovation, and we forgot about people. And when you really step back from it, you realize that it's people that come up with the ideas, it's people that will take those ideas and make them successful, and it's actually people that sabotage or undermine or stop that innovation from happening. So if we focus on the people, we can start and start understanding their personalities, the culture of the organization, the fears that might be driving them, and a number of other factors. We can actually start increasing the success of innovation. So a lot of what the Innovation Blueprint is to start trying to shift the way we actually think about innovation. And it's not necessarily just coming up with a new product, but where it fits in the organization. Are we looking at new products? Are we totally looking at what the business is about? Are we looking at how we market the product, how we sell it, and a range of factors, and really think about how that would actually work to actually drive that profit and success. It's an interesting issue that I find with organizations who look at innovation to drive profit and growth, yet when you actually look at the innovation itself, when forming that innovation or driving that innovation, profit and growth is actually not an objective of that innovation. And that's a very good example of why organizations are struggling to get the results that they were expecting from innovation. Sort of a good example, I guess, that most of us would be aware of is mobile phone apps for banking. And a lot of banking organizations are trying to be very innovative in providing these sorts of applications. And you would say that's an innovative approach. But when you actually look at it, mobile phone apps for banking are actually a cost center, not a profit center. So when you really think about it, what they're doing is they're helping you to take money out of the bank. When you actually look at a bank, its profit comes from people borrowing money from them, and they make profits on the interest on those loans. So here's an innovative app, and its focus is not about lending and getting people to borrow money. So it's not an innovation that actually drives profit. That doesn't mean that the innovation is wrong, because you might have to look at these sorts of innovation to try and keep customers on board or a number of other reasons. But people need to think about, okay, that innovation, is it going to drive profit and growth? And if it doesn't at the moment, is there something that we could do to adjust that innovation to drive that profit and growth? So if I looked at a telephone banking application from a bank, and all it's doing is helping me to withdraw money or transfer money around accounts, then what I need to try and do is somewhere in the adverts or something is to identify that this person might be interested in a car loan or a home loan or something, and have it pointed to a loan application screen or something to try and then grab that customer that's already engaged now with that organization to a profit-centric activity. So when you're actually looking at innovation and growth, it's very important to make sure that people don't get excited with the technologies or the ideas, but to keep coming back to what is the actual objective. And the objective always is that you've got to drive profit and growth for the organization. And if you can keep that being front and center of all the decision making around that innovation, then you start actually driving better profit and growth from those innovations. One of the things that one of the problems that a lot of CEOs face with innovation is to try and overcome the resistance to change that's in the organization and often in the executive team. And despite that the CEO sees that change, it's very hard to then actually get that innovative change occurring through the organization. And one of the good examples that I've seen in a lot of organizations post the global financial crisis is this expectation that business will come back. So if you think before the global financial crisis, from about 2009 through to from 1990 through to 2007, there was a very good boom time for many organizations. And then the global financial crisis hit and we went into a trough, a recession. A lot of the executive team regard, look, things go up, things come down, but they'll come back up again. So their view is, look, we just tread water at the moment, keep our costs down, and business will come back as it was before. But one of the things that CEOs could do to try and get the executive team to understand that that's not the case is to try and explain how a lot of boom crash cycles are actually related to new innovations. So whilst there's a crash that's come through, the next wave is not going to be on the current innovation, it's going to be on a new innovation. A very good example I would use for that is going back to the early 1900s when the Ford motor car was starting to become the new choice of transport for people. So the companies that were making saddles for horses suddenly started seeing a decline in their sales. Now, if the executive team was sitting here saying, look, we just got to wait out and sales for saddles will come back in the near future, they'll be waiting for a long time because people were not going to go back to horses as transport, they were going to go to cars. Those salary organizations that said, okay, new innovations come in, it's changed the market, what we need to do is now to focus on how we can meet that new innovation. And those organizations then actually went into doing upholstery for cars and created a whole new business. And a very good example of that is Holden in Australia, that became General Motors Holden, was actually a saddlery company who started from making saddles, realized the car innovation had come in, went to starting to do upholstery, went into repairing cars, and then eventually into making cars. So they're a very good example of a company that changed as innovation occurred, where many other companies didn't change, and all they did was to keep reducing prices and fighting over a diminishing market. So it's very important to try and get to your executive team to understand that this is not an up and down cycle, but actually a trough that's occurred because we are swinging to new innovations, whether it's digital innovations, digital disruptors, or some other organizations. We are actually facing a shift in innovations, and the new growth market is not going to be the growth market that we had in the past. One of the reasons that most organizations are looking at innovation in the current time frame at the moment is to do with digital disruptors. So I think it's an issue in most boardrooms and in executive meetings at the moment is how do we defend against digital disruptors? And it's quite curious to watch some organizations saying, look, we're worried about a digital disruptor, so we need to go and get new web software, to build a better web page. And at this time, it's very important for the innovation leader to actually pull back and actually ask, well, what is the reason that a digital disruptor is having such an impact on business? And when you actually look at it, digital disruptors aren't really digital disruptors, they're business model disruptors. So a very good example would be Uber, the taxi service. Now, it's not that I can go in and order a ride on a mobile app. The actual issue is that Uber is the largest taxi company in the world, and it doesn't actually own a taxi. So the business model is very different. So if the business model is different, and I'm a taxi company and I'm saying, how do I defend against this digital disruptor? Having a mobile app that allows me to order a taxi isn't going to enable me to be competitive against the digital disruptor. I have to rethink the business model. So it's very important to make sure that when people are looking at how do we innovate to protect against the digital disruptor, to actually start asking the question, how is it actually disrupting us, and actually focus on what those disruptions are. And also to think about it is to say, are we really going to go and copy their business model, or should we rethink what our business model is? And a very good example I would point to that is Flight Centre. And Flight Centre, the travel agency that we all know. If you look at the travel agency industry over the last 20 years, and go back many years ago, if I wanted to fly from Sydney to Melbourne or New York to Los Angeles, I would have actually gone and phoned up a travel agency organization who would organize the ticket for me and then courier that ticket for me. And then somebody came along with a web page, and I could order that ticket on the web page, and I never needed the travel agent to manage that. So here's a digital disruptor that has completely and utterly impacted the travel agency, a major business for travel agents. So if this digital disruptor is in, why is Flight Centre doing so successfully and still growing and having, shares are still growing quite successfully? And the reason is that Flight Centre didn't duplicate what the digital disruptors did. They focused on what the digital disruptors didn't do, and that was to look at the specialist services. So it's very easy to organize a flight ticket from Sydney to Melbourne. But if I'm saying, look, I need to fly from Sydney, I need to go to Los Angeles, then I want to go to Ottawa, and then I want to come back to Boston, and then I'm going to Denver, and look, I need to change a flight, I want to go to another place. Suddenly, the web system can't handle it. The amount of work for the person using it just suddenly blows out. So that specialist service that is what Flight Centre is focusing on. So when you hit with a digital disruptor, it's really to start looking at your business and saying, what are our strengths? What are our weaknesses? What is the digital disruptor's strengths and weaknesses? And then start actually looking how you change your business model to fit that. This is where the innovation is really important, to actually really understand it's not about technology, it's about the business model, it's about your business market.
If you don't have a copy of David's book, The CEO Innovation Blueprint, you can get that now at freeceoblueprintbook.com.au. That's freeceoblueprintbook.com.au.